How about that? Our guest tonight is the man behind that music, a virtuoso guitarist and songwriter. Since 1984, member of Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band. It is Nils Lofgren on the Lightning Round. How are you?
Sir, how you doing?
So good to see you.
Good to see you.
Life good?
You.
Excited?
Great to see you. Thanks.
I'm thrilled. You know, after turning the Super Bowl gig down since 1975, every year, Bruce had a change of heart. We're all thrilled about it. Also, you know, I've been doing music for the All Madden team, which some of you might be too young to remember. But did 10 years of original rock and roll. And of course, John's my favorite sports announcer, Hall of Fame coach. He's calling the game. He actually invited me down as his guest before I knew Bruce was playing. And living in Arizona for 13 years, who would have thought our Cardinals would be in the game?
I know.
So there's a lot of great things going on this week for me.
So he's really turned it down since 79?
75.
Jeez. Wow. Can you imagine that? Getting the phone call every year. You going to come to Super Bowl? Why do you think he changed his mind this year?
Well, you know, Bruce, bottom line, I think the corporate nature and just every time you play TV, you have to condense your songs or chop them up. We never do that in concert. And I think due to his success and the corporate nature of it, he just shied away from it. This year, have a great new album out. I think, too, just being on the road for 40 years, we've all looked at it as a great way to reach some new people with a new album. And I think, too, last year we saw Tom Petty and realized that kind of music could be presented with class despite all the hoopla.
And I know you can't tell us exactly what you're doing. It's a little bit of a secret, but you got to be excited about it.
I mean, I don't want to lose my job.
No, I don't want to do that.
I've been watching him rehearse it, though, for
that would really be bad if we're the reason why.
25 years, me and Patty are still the new kids in the band. And I don't want to rock the boat.
But you got to have a good time sitting up there playing. I know it's been so long, but I know you said you were a fan of his before you...
We had a distant friendship, which meant a lot to me. And fortunately, in '84, when he needed a guitarist, I got a call. I said, hey, why don't you come up and jam with the band for a couple of days?
Was that Born to Run in '84 or not?
Born in the USA.
Born in the USA.
You know what? I'd been up to his home a few months earlier, and he was playing me the Born in the USA album. And a few months later, cause we go out and jam in bars. We love to do that. And he called and said, yeah, why don't you come up and maybe we'll get the band together and play around for a couple of days. And I said, get the band together. He's very low-key, and I realized this was an audition. And I took it very seriously. I went up with some charts of some of the classics like Born to Run, Badlands, Promised Land that he'd have to play.
Right.
Because I didn't want anyone in the band having to shout chords in my ear. And we jammed for 2 days. It felt great. He asked me to join.
Wow.
How lucky.
Yeah.
You guys had a good time here in Tampa this week?
It's been great. You know, I realize it's interesting because a couple of tours ago, John Madden, who's calling the game, an old buddy, finally I keep telling John, Bruce Springsteen is the All Madden singer of all time in rock and roll. And I kept wanting him to see his show, but long story short, in Chicago, my wife Amy grabbed John and brought him to an E Street concert.
Right.
John went back with Bruce for a half an hour before the show, and he came out, and the first thing he said was, you know, I felt like I was visiting with a Hall of Fame quarterback on the eve of a Super Bowl. And that was John Madden's first impression of Bruce.
Right.
Before his show. He remains very calm and isolated and just gathers his thoughts. And it really reminded me, with Bruce and the E Street Band, every gig is like a Super Bowl. In addition to a hometown crowd, you're guaranteed to win. You're just working on the point spread.
Cool. And I see that you guys are promising a 12-minute party. Is that what we're going to get?
12-minute party.
12-minute party.
Like Bruce said, you know, imagine a 3-hour show. You showed up late. You got in there for time for the last 12 minutes. That's our intent, is to make it that exciting.
At his news conference, he showed pieces of humor, and since he doesn't do a lot of news conferences,
That's
you know,
true.
Does he have a funny side like that? I mean, what is he like?
Bruce has a great sense of humor, and actually one of my favorite times the last few years, I've done the last 2 records with his wife Patty, who makes brilliant records, and Bruce is one of the session players. And he'll play bass, guitar. He's a very gifted musician, actually underrated musician. But some of the funniest things I've ever seen is him cutting up at the sessions when we're just hanging out in between takes with his wife Patty and at their home.
Right.
So he's got a great sense of humor, and you know, being a boss of a band that size and, you know, massive organization, you gotta be on your game and a little serious while you're, you know, on the clock. But he's got a great sense of humor. He's the salt of the earth guy you think he is and more.
Perfect.
Good stuff. Good stuff. NilsLofgren.com. And of course, oh, by the way, Super Bowl halftime show this weekend.
Yeah.
Should be a
Go
lot of fun.
Cardinals.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for coming. It was a lot of fun.
Nils Lofgren from the E Street Band. We'll be right back.